Good morning. Welcome to Saturday. I'm Sarah, and I'm so glad to be here. And I'm so glad that you are too. So, it's been a busy week. It's been a full week. I don't use the word busy anymore, actually. It's been a very full week. It's been a great week, and I hope it has been a great week for you as well. And for those of you who've been watching my videos this week, thank you for joining me, and I'd love to hear how they're helping you. Feel free to drop it in the comments. What's helped you? What have you seen in your own awareness over the week in listening to the content? How has it helped you? How has it shifted things for you? And or feel free to send me a private message and let me know that information. So this morning I want to talk about how we use our conditioning against ourselves. This is a topic I love talking about, and it is the primary work I do with people, right? Including myself, right? How am I using my own conditioning, my own beliefs against myself? So what does this mean, right? I got into it a little bit in the last couple of days, this understanding around who you are, and that a lot of, or we are largely based, what we believe, right, is who we are and how we show up in the world. I say that lightly because I know everybody has a little bit of a different view around like who you are, right? So it's just to say that the way that you show up in the world is based on the beliefs that you hold. And part of what that looks like is thoughts around the way it's always been, and or just the way you function that way because it's the way you've always been. So right inside of that belief, awareness, understanding, we then use our beliefs, right, against ourselves, right? We use our conditioning against ourselves. And most of the time, we have no idea that you're doing it. Which is like, oh, right? Awareness of like, wow, I am using my beliefs against myself. Yes, you are. You're using your beliefs against yourself. And until you really slow down enough to look at that, you will have no idea that you're doing it, right? Because most people are going about life with the best of intentions. You're out there working hard, doing the things that you think you should be doing, and of course you're not intending to use your beliefs against yourself. So I want to talk more about that this morning because it's so important. So what does it mean to use your beliefs against yourself? It's these notions, and I thought I'd just use the holidays since we're right upon Thanksgiving. Your beliefs about the holidays, right? Your beliefs about how the holidays should go, and about how you actually want the holidays to go. So in this understanding around how do I use my beliefs against myself, how do I use my conditioning, if you grew up where holidays are always spent with family, right? Let's just go with that example. You've grown up in a family where you always get together for the holidays, and you always maybe go to one person's house, or maybe you rotate, or maybe there's one person that always does all the cooking, and maybe you have other members like bring stuff, but there's like a tradition in play, and you go not necessarily because you even think about whether or not you want to go, but you go simply because that's the way it's always been. Right? So there it is, right? Just one really easy, simple example, very practical, relevant example to use is doing something because that's just the way it's always been, because it's the way you've always done things. So therein lies our own belief system, our conditioning, the way it's always been. And so we just go along with it. Most of us don't even stop to think about whether or not it is actually what we want. And so when it's not truly what you want, you will have thoughts like, man, the holidays are so busy. Or oh my gosh, I just don't even feel like over the next week I'm going to have a minute to breathe. Or, man, I really don't want to go through all of this fuss and bus and, hustle and bustle and make it over to so-and-so's house. And maybe you also have to go to someone else's house. Or maybe you're the person that does all the cooking and you're like, man, I really don't want to be doing all the cooking this year. And so you'll have thoughts like that going on. Or maybe you'll have the thought, man, I just really wish we could do something simple. I hear that one all the time. I really wish we could just do something simple and not have all these dishes or not have all of this activity going on. So you'll hear yourself either just thinking those things or saying them out loud when you're actually using your conditioning against yourself. Okay, so why is this important? Because when we're using our conditioning against ourselves, in this example of doing holidays just the way they've always been, instead of actually stopping to ask ourselves what we really want, you're then vocalizing these comments and or just thinking them in your own mind, that are actually a way of you recognizing, I'm doing something that I don't want to be doing, right? And so inside of doing anything that you don't want to be doing is actually you betraying yourself. And I'm using that like intense word intentionally, because at the core, which is I'm all about like stripping things down and like really looking at what we're talking about, you're actually betraying yourself. You desire to do this, and yet you're doing this complete other thing. So you're doing what traditionally has been known as like self-sacrifice, putting other people before yourself, those types of things that have been taught to us for years. And so we think we're doing the right thing, but really we're not actually doing the right thing by ourselves, right? We're actually setting ourselves up for frustration, disappointment, annoyance, resentment, all of that. So it's important to recognize where you're using your own conditioning against yourself, because you're actually betraying yourself, right? Which then diminishes your self-trust and your ability to feel confident within yourself, confident in your decisions, confident in how you're going about your life, and overall, it erodes your general level of happiness and sense of comfort in the world. So if this is happening regularly, naturally, you're going to be an even an even more unhappy person than you are right now. And even if it's not happening like all the time and you're not miserable, it's almost worse when it's not happening all the time and or you're not yet being affected by it at the level of miserable, because that means you're hanging out here in the lukewarm zone, right? And so you could end up living your whole life in the lukewarm zone, which is kind of like mediocre, going through life at like the mediocre rate, which some people choose to do. Totally fine if that's what you desire to do. But I don't think so, because if you're here watching me, you know that I am not at all about doing the mediocre. I'm really about living the extraordinary life. So if this is resonating with you, think about where is it that you might be actually using your own conditioning against yourself, where you are actually falling into, I'm doing it this way because that's the way I've always done it. I'm doing this thing because that's the way I've always done it. Where are you falling into that? So naturally, right, where will you resist actually stopping doing it the way it's always been? I mean, Thanksgiving is such a great example, just the holidays and family traditions. When we break with tradition, right, we run the risk of being judged, being rejected, having uncomfortable conversations, right? Other people being upset at you. All of that is sort of, we'll say, a risk on the other side of you having what you want. And so naturally, you're going to resist actually even just stopping to have the conversation with yourself about, what do I really want? What do I really want this Thanksgiving? right? And so most people just go about their own routines and essentially keep themselves in that sort of lukewarm zone of not loving their life. But those of you who are willing to actually slow down and say, what do I really want for this next week, for Thanksgiving? If I could have it just the way I wanted, what would it look like? For those of you that are willing to do that, you then also run the risk of this uncomfortable happening, right? And so therein lies this other topic we've been spending time on, which is trust in yourself, right? Because you got to have enough trust in yourself to follow through with what you want, right? And to be able to handle what's on the other side of the uncomfortable conversation that may not be as fun, that may be uncomfortable, right? And can you handle having those conversations and getting the reactions that you're trying to avoid receiving? So it's a whole dynamic that, of course, plays out in 1,000 different ways in our lives and keeps us in the zone of stuck and lukewarm and ultimately not loving your life, not loving waking up every day excited about what it is that you're getting ready to do. So thinking about what it is you really want is just a great simple way to practically get started assessing, evaluating your own life and how you're literally using your own conditioning, right? About where you're hurting yourself. We'll just narrow it down to simply say, where are you hurting yourself? Where are you setting yourself up to repeat the pattern that is actually keeping you stuck, keeping you from what you want? Okay, so if you can't, and another side note, just as we're talking about relationships, which I believe for sure we all want to be in relationship with others, to feel deeply seen and heard, right? And so if you're not able to be honest with yourself about what you really want, it's going to be very difficult for you to be truly honest with other people about what you want, right? And what you want in the relationship with them. And when it's hard for you to be honest with what you want, and it's hard for you to communicate it, right? Because you're fearful, other people will also struggle to be honest with you. And thinking about it like you'll just be bringing in and attracting to you what feels comfortable, which is other people who are not fully trusting to have those conversations themselves. So if you're like, man, I really wish I had deeper relationships, that I could like really connect with people at a deeper level, this is the place, this is one of the places to really dig in and do the work, the inner work with yourself to become a person who is fully capable of having that type of conversation with others. You have to start having that conversation with yourself, but then being able to have that conversation with others. Because if you can't do it yourself, you're not going to attract, you're not going to be in relationship with other people who are able to give you that kind of relationship, that kind of depth, that kind of intimacy that you are craving. So the takeaway from today that I want to give to you is get honest with yourself first about what you want. So even as we go into this week here, practically for Thanksgiving, what do you really want this week for the holidays? What is it that you really want? And are you able to be honest with yourself? And are you able to be honest with those that you love and those that are around you to share what it is that you really want? All right, you guys, as always, thanks for joining me here and spending time. I very much appreciate you spending time with me, and I trust that you will find value in this if you're here. And I'd love to hear how it's impacting you, how it's resonating, and or what other questions you have that you might want to hear about. So for those of you that are like, wow, yes, this is so relevant, and I can totally see how I am using my own beliefs to hurt myself ultimately, and using my thoughts around the way things have always been to actually keep myself from being happy. What? That's crazy. And you're not crazy. Most people do this, by the way. But if you're ready and you're like, I need help with this because I'm tired of it and I don't want to keep doing that anymore, and I know I'm meant to live an extraordinary life, I would love to have a conversation with you. I can totally help you get you to that other side where you really want to be. And it all starts with just having a conversation first to see if we're a good fit, if it feels energetic on both sides to work together. Set up a conversation and we can at least talk about it and see what that might look like to work together to be able to get you what you really want in your life. All right, you guys, as always, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you very soon. In the meantime, go do that thing you really want, and I'll talk to you soon.